let's get started this evening. While SPALC is settling in, would Robert, you like to start with the check-in? You have a mic? No mic. Oh, there it is. What's it? Do you guys have a mic over there?
Yes.
Good afternoon, I'm Robert Godin. I am well. I have no time constraints. We have Heather Leonard is missing. Kelly Letcher will be here in the boardroom. Answering questions. Shanna will be a little late also. Suzette will not be here. She's in Pennsylvania at a job fair. Here's Kelly, so you can erase her.
Okay.
She is here. That's it. I have no elephants, and my expectation is to reach an agreement.
I'm Will Rothenberg. I'm doing well. I have no time constraints. Missing, I believe, is noted from the SPALC side is here. Expectation, reach an agreement.
Kelly Letcher. I'm fine, sorry I'm late. Time constraints I have none. Missing noted, no elephants, and expectation is to reach an agreement.
I'm Jason Kurtz. I'm doing amazing. I don't have any time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and my expectation is to reach an agreement.
Good evening, my name is Roger Lloyd. I'm doing well. I do not have any time constraints. Missing has been noticed. No elephants and expectation.
My name is Jenny Brown. I'm doing well, no time constraints. Who's missing, no elephants, and wrap this up.
15 Road, I'm here. No time constraints, missing noted, no elephants, and wrap this up.
Good afternoon, I'm Bonnie, I'm doing well, no time constraints beyond our 7 o'clock end time. Missing is noted, no elephants, expectation reaching agreement.
Good evening, I'm Helen, I'm doing well, I have no time constraints, missing has been noted, I have no elephants, and expectation to reach an agreement.
Good evening, my name is Katie Messenger. I'm doing well, no time constraints. Missing has been noted. I have no elephants, and expectation is to wrap this up.
Hi, my name is Beth Brockman. I am well, no time constraints. Kim Hutchins missing, no elephants, and to enter into agreement.
Hi, I'm Tammy Met, I'm doing well, no time constraints. Kim Ashbetson is missing, no elephants, expectations to come to an agreement.
Word, this is, oh, that is loud.
How's that? Not as bad as it has been in the past.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Kurt Fasone. I'm Director for Island Coast FDA and Chief Negotiator for the union. I'm doing fine. No time constraints. I don't think we have any missing. No elephants, and I will join everyone else, reach an agreement.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Kemp. I'm the administrator appointed to SPALC. I'm doing well. Time constraints, none. Who's missing? No one. Elephants in the room? Elephants, none. Expectation, reach an agreement as well.
My name is Roger Coulson. I'm doing fine. No time constraints. Missing has been noted. No elephants, and reach an agreement.
I'm Ken Neese, I'm doing fine, no time constraints, missing's been noted, no elephants, and yeah, let's reach an agreement.
My name is Minnie Bennett. I'm doing fine. I have no time constraints. Missing is noted. I have no elephants, and my expectations are to reach an agreement.
Good evening. My name is Arlise Williams. I'm doing well. Time constraint 7. Missing is noted. No elephants, and to come to an agreement.
Hey, my name is Amanda Evans. Time constraint 6:15. No elephant. Reach an argument.
Hi, I'm Vivian Hawkins. I'm doing fine, no time constraint. Well, I do need to leave at 6:15. But if not, I can work it over. No one is missing, no elephants, and to reach an agreement tonight. Please, Lord.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rafael Cruz. I'm doing good. No time constraints. Missing is noted. No elephants. My expectation is to get done today.
Okay, I don't know where she went, so she went to the car. Okay, thanks, everyone.
I'm Amy French. Doing well. No time constraints, missing has been noted, no elephants, and expectations are to help you reach an agreement.
And hi, I'm Donna. I'm doing well, no time constraint. And my expectation is to help you reach an agreement this evening. Just give me a second here. Put the paper around. Okay, I know we have one thing on the agenda this evening, compensation. I don't believe we have any minutes heard. Will didn't think we did, so I just want to double check. Okay. So with that, I know the district says they have a presentation. Do you want to do that now, Rob?
Yeah, we can do that now. Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right. So we shared a draft version of this presentation with SPALC Labor Management. We met on Wednesday and have had some conversation. Sorry about that. We had some conversation around where we left off in the conversation and kind of what our shared interests were, and tried to come up with an option that would help us to be able to meet as many of those shared interests as possible. So to take you through this option, so rather than look at an across-the-board percentage increase, one of the things that we tried to do was an across-the-board hourly rate increase. We felt like that would help us address some of the concerns that were brought up about people kind of on the high end of the salary schedule making $35 an hour, and what a percent increase would do for those people versus people who are currently making $11, $12 an hour. We were able to, with the funding available, get to 80 cents an hour. And so the thought was, if you go first with that increase, every employee would get an 80 cent an hour increase. I think that puts you between 2.5 and about 6 and maybe a little bit more percent increase depending on what position you're in. Obviously, the higher percent increase would be for the people that are currently earning a lower hourly rate. We looked at an increase in the market rate for bus operators, and we're able to move that number up to $17.50. Establishing a market rate for the new kind of consolidated paraprofessional position, we were able to get that to $15.75. We would need to update our salary schedule so that the market rate for all positions would be 80 cents higher moving forward. And again, anyone who receives that 80 cents and is below, for bus operators, that $17.50, or paraprofessionals below that $15.75, however far off they are, they would then get trued up to that amount. And then we already have agreement on that last bullet. We had an MOU that we signed after one of the earlier bargaining sessions where we agreed to do that consolidated paraprofessional, that ESE paraprofessionals would receive $1,000 supplement. That would replace the current hygiene supplement and kind of account for some of those duties, as well as some of the expectations around people being required to take teach training or CPR training or some of those other things that they're required to take when they're working in ESE positions. We also looked at trying to align longevity. This is something I think we had discussed last year, and then it got kind of tabled. But this would be based on years L. So currently, people do not receive credit for years of service that were performed in other salary schedules. So if someone were part of salary schedule N for a little while and then went back to SPALC, or let's say they were an administrator or a teacher and went back to SPALC, they would not receive credit for those years of service to the district. Also, based on the current longevity system, if someone has a break in service, they would lose the years prior. So you could have worked for the district for 15 years. If you had a 1-year break in service, when you come back, you're starting at year 1 for longevity purposes. This would address that by taking into account all years of district service, regardless of the bargaining unit, and regardless of whether those are consecutive years. So if someone did leave for a year in that situation I just described, every year that they worked in the district that they got that credit for would count. This would also allow people to begin receiving the longevity payment at 10 years, where currently people don't receive it until their 15th year. And then the other thing, and this is I think where we kind of ran into the obstacle last year, years 25 through 29 and years 30 plus, we were able to increase those amounts. Last year, I think what we had proposed, as we were trying to get it aligned with TALC, we didn't have the funding to make it so that there were people who would possibly lose $100 or $200. This would make sure that everyone would receive an increase in longevity. The option that we wanted to put out there had all of these changes effective 7/1/22. To kind of go backwards through them, the reason for that with the longevity one is that currently there are people that receive that longevity payment based on kind of when their work anniversary is. This would have that payment throughout the course of the year, so you would get a portion of that in the year as you go. That was something that we heard from principals that they felt like was important, because you have people that come back and work the first week of school in August and then retire, and then they're left trying to fill those vacancies during the first days of the school year. We also have people who leave midway through the year and don't receive the benefit of that because they didn't stay until whatever their previous hire date was. So that was the rationale with that, but it would allow everyone who has not received that longevity payment for this year to receive it before starting on the new system. And again, this would then align with what's in place for TALC. And then hopefully we would be able to look at N and admin and kind of have everyone on one system, which would make things a lot easier to administer and to explain to everyone moving forward. I have a couple other slides to take you all through, just to kind of show some of the background information. So this shows what the difference for paraprofessionals would be with that move to 1575 in terms of what people's annual take-home pay would look like. You can see that this would bring people above the current average for those positions. This is what it would look like for bus operators. So again, you would still have people kind of at the higher end, but it would bring the majority of the people who are at that $16 an hour, it would bring them up. Got a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why did you finish?
Yeah.
All right.
I was wondering if you could explain how to read the box and whisker plot, please.
Yeah, so let me go back, because we have a couple other ones that were not in the earlier draft. So basically, this is the minimum, this is the maximum, and then this is the average. And there's different ways that we can set those up. So if you guys are looking at this and say, you know, well, that's a pretty looking graph, but it's confusing. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how I'm going to explain that to someone else who hasn't suffered through as many hours of bargaining as I have. We can look at trying to do that differently moving forward. This is kind of a first attempt at showing people what the change means using charts and graphs. Which is something that we've been doing with TALC for a little while, and it's a little bit easier because they have fewer positions that they represent. So the next one, again, this shows the hourly rates, and this next kind of group of charts is interesting. All of this stuff will be in the minute, so you guys will have access to this. But this again shows the hourly rate. We picked some of the most common SPALC positions. We didn't go with all of them, so you won't see a number of the positions in maintenance, mechanics positions. Some of those are not included. These are positions for the most part that have 50 or more employees in them. But that shows you where the average is in terms of the range of what people are making in hourly rate. A couple to kind of draw attention to, you can see, tech support specialists. There's a really wide range with the average employee at the lower end of the range. Same thing for safety and security specialists. You have others, like school secretary, where people are at the middle of the range. But again, that's kind of what it looks like for hourly rate. And this would be after the increase. This is hours per year. So this would be, showing you 2,000 hours is typically what people would consider a full-time year-round position. This is to show the difference in different positions who have fewer hours per day or fewer days per year, what that means in terms of the total number of hours that those people are scheduled to work. Again, there's some differences there in that we might have part-time custodians, who work less than 500 hours a year. Those might be people that have split jobs, so they might be a part-time custodian, part-time food service worker. But that's in each of those positions you can see. And part of the reason for showing this is to kind of draw the contrast between some of the positions that we looked at, like food service worker, where the average food service worker is working less than 1,500 hours a year. They're actually just above 1,000 hours per year based on the number of days and number of hours they work, where custodians working 8 hours a day, 255 days a year. The majority of them are closer to 2,000 hours. This also doesn't take into account availability of overtime, which is another factor that we'll try and get to. And again, if you guys are looking at this and say this is helpful, not helpful, we can kind of adjust. This is hours per day. So again, to give people an idea, one of the things I would point to, and this is to the credit of food services, the average number of hours for a food service worker has increased steadily over the past couple of years and sits at right about 6 hours. A couple of years ago, it was, I think, probably closer to 4 hours. But again, you can see there are other positions where just about everyone is working 8 hours a day. And that makes a difference, obviously, in what people see in terms of their take-home pay. Here's your days per year. Some of those positions, obviously, you can see have kind of flexible work schedules. You can have someone working a 255-day work year, or you can have someone working a shorter year. I think the biggest difference in some of those positions is maybe where you work. They might have fewer students, less of a need for a clerk typist at an elementary school as opposed to a high school. Bookkeeper, again, it might depend on how much money is going through the school, how complicated some of those transactions are as to whether or not they need that person or have that person scheduled to work year-round. These are the annual rates, and again, this is based off of actual information. This is where people are currently. And so again, you can see the range, and this is what people earn in a year in their regularly scheduled hours working for the school district. So again, food service workers, the average is below $20,000 a year. For bus attendants, clinic assistants, it's right around $20,000. When you start to get into some of those other positions, you can see, again, there's a big range. On most of these, the average is pretty close to the center, with the one exception being head custodians, which there's a smaller range, and the average head custodian is paid at the lower end of that range. And just to give a little bit of extra background, we can now do this for just about any position. So if there was an interest in looking at, let's say, custodian, head custodian, building supervisor as kind of a career path, or others, we could provide that to SPALC Labor Management and show you kind of what it looks like even outside of the bargaining unit, or, just what it looks like as a whole for the district. And then this is people's earnings based on what was reported in their W-2. So this would include overtime, and this shows you, again, it's got people that are part-time or people that worked few to no hours. But you can see there's a wide range in there. A couple of the positions, just judging by this, it looks like tech support specialists, there are some that are able to work a considerable amount of overtime. Food service workers, again, they're limited in the number of days. There's not many opportunities for overtime. So that range doesn't deviate much from what was in the previous slide. Transportation, obviously, there's a lot of opportunities for overtime. It's more about people's availability to work those hours. One of the things that you'll notice with school bus operator is you have a range of almost $70,000, with the average bus operator at about $30,000 for the year. So that means that there is at least one bus operator earning over $70,000 a year. The other thing I would point out is that when you have those ones with the big range, it's possible that the highs and the lows kind of skew the numbers a little bit. So it's possible that, although that's the average, you have kind of some extreme outliers that are pulling it up or pulling it down slightly. So that was some of the stuff that we put together, again, just to kind of help people visualize and see, I think, what we have been talking about a lot more this year in terms of, kind of the internal equity of compensation as it relates to, people's ability to work overtime, people's ability to work additional days, additional hours, depending on whether or not their position is, again, scheduled a certain way. And we wanted to make sure that that was something that was taken into account as well.
Okay. Questions, clarifications needed on that? Yes, Vivian.
Okay. Well, I like the suggestion for the paraprofessionals. I like that. I like the supplement part. And I like that 1575, which I think they would like that as well. And the 80 cents per hour increase for all SPALC employees. The only thing I have a little worry about is the cafeteria security and custodians, especially the ones that's part-time. They basically wait to try to get a full-time position and nothing comes open. And they like their job. And then the last thing, I don't like that longevity. And I don't mean it in a harsh way, it's just that when I started for the school district, way back in the way back days, I don't know if y'all know my age. When I started way back, and I was only making, I started with $6.84 an hour. But I was when 5 years came and I got my pen, I felt so good about it. And then when the 10-year, I stayed on, my husband said, oh yeah, stay on, stay on. I got my 10-year pen and I got that one, the 150. And then, was it 10 years or was it 15 years? 15 years, I got the 150, I don't see I'm getting there. So yeah, I don't think, I enjoy being compensated for what I've done in my years and stuff. And I don't think that spreading it out through the year is a good idea. People look forward for that lump sum. It helps out a lot at the beginning of the school year, because when I started, we was getting paid for those little 5 days on the 15th, which was heaven. But then they took that off the table and said, okay, well, you're not gonna get paid until the end of August. Well, some people don't get a check, so they have to spread that summer check out, which that's, nowadays, things are so high, the summer check is not gonna last. So that when August come at the end of the year, the beginning of the school year, people that done been here a while and put in their lifetime journey with the school district, they welcome and they're excited by getting that longevity money. I can understand the principals and what they're trying to do, and we appreciate that and everything. I understand their position as well, but that longevity once a year does help out a lot. And if they spread that out through the year, like they trying to do, tax is gonna eat that up and nobody's gonna see it. But just to see that check there at the end of August helps out a lot, it really does. And to take it off and just spread it out through the year, because the principals say they have a hard time because people retire after they don't put in their hard working years with the school district, and then they can't find a replacement. You just can't not punish, but you just can't take away something somebody else look forward to because they don't put in their years and be ready and hopefully ready to get that money, because it helps out a lot, it really does. And spreading it out through the year and putting taxes on it, you don't see that money. Just like when we did the $1,000 for the MOU. I had a lot of paraprofessionals running my way saying, I didn't get $1,000, I got $700, or I got $800. I'm like, okay, yeah, they taxed on it because, we didn't, put it in the wording as, for them not to tax on it. So yeah, you did get 700, you did get 800, but they were looking forward for that 1,000. So that's why I'm trying to, I would leave that longevity like it is. Tony wins.
I agree with Vivian. I am one of those people that have been here for 35 years.
Yeah.
The longevity was part of my reasoning for staying. At the beginning of the year, coming off of summer, I'm not getting paid because I'm not working the whole summer. So that check pulls me out of the hole when I come back to work. So to take that away, I've earned that, and I feel like it should stay the way that it is because I've put in my time to get that. And even if other people are leaving, they get it and leave, or however it was that Will said it, that's what they're gonna do, whether they want to or not. That's what they're gonna do. This was an incentive for me to stay. And I've been here for 35 years. To change that now I don't see the logic in that.
All right, so we have an option out there, right, before I go into this.
So I just wanted to add a couple things about the longevity. The one, and Kelly reminded me to point this out. Right now, the way the SPALC longevity payment is in the contract, it's kind of confusing because you get the $100, then it's plus $750, then it's plus another amount. These would be the actual amounts. So currently, I think it maxes out at like $1,800 or $1,900. This would have it max out at $2,500. So that would be an extra $600 over the course of the year. One of the other things, and I think this is part of what we were hoping would be a trade-off that you all would be willing to consider, is I think that by having everyone kind of on the same system again, TALC is already receiving this. They just agreed to increase the amounts for 25 and 30-year plus employees. The admin also now receive a similar supplement. I think part of the thought was that it puts everyone in the same position. The amounts are the same. So a SPALC person would get the same as a TALC person or an administrator. But I think one of the other things, and this is for years down the road, I think was to look at the possibility of making that amount more generous in the future. I know that I think Kerr and Kevin or Elizabeth, someone shared earlier that Charlotte County does a similar thing, and they pay their employees with 30 plus years about $10,000. So there's the opportunity, I think, to make up for what you're talking about in terms of, you know, not seeing as much. The other thing is that as a component of pay, and we're still talking through some of this for implementation with the TALC one, but my understanding is that then attaches to summer school too. So if you're working summer school or additional hours, you would receive kind of the equivalent amount, which again, I think is something that would make it, you know, more beneficial for people that decide to work summer school, so that they would receive a little bit additional for that payment. I'm not really sure if I said that right. I'm looking over. Now Kelly's telling me no. There was some discussion about that. I'm still learning in the implementation side of it, but again, I think the thought was that this would be a starting point, and that having the whole district, you know, again, it wouldn't change if you move from one salary schedule to the other, and then could look at making all of them more generous moving forward. Because although $2,500 is more than we pay currently, I still think for someone who's put in 30 years in the district, that's not nearly enough to say thank you. Your service is appreciated.
Okay. Hold on, Raphael, just a second. Do you two want that up there as an option, that you get longevity and a lump sum?
Right.
Yes. Put that up as an option.
Also, the way that it would be paid would make it FRS eligible, where I don't think that it is currently FRS eligible.
Okay, there's another factor to consider. All right, Raphael.
When I, excuse me, when I get 15 years of time working for the district, I receive $150. I've been receiving $150 for 3 years. In August, I don't know, it's the same. But now for the 10 to 14 years, they're gonna give you $250. For the 15 to 19 years, it'll be $500. So what about the whole 3 years I only receive $150? I mean, anybody who get there now, you're gonna receive $100. I receive only $150 for 3 years.
Do we know that, I don't think that, I think we do get money taken out for FRS, for that longevity. I think we do, don't we?
Kelly will answer that question.
Okay.
So the difference is that with the longevity that the SPALC currently has, when your FRS is figured at the end of your time or whatever, that amount's not included in your FRS earnings amount. With this change, it would be included as part of your total package. So when it's looking at your top 5 years for your total payout, this amount would be included in that as well, where currently it is not.
Oh, I have to look into that. But anyway, like I was saying, I do think that because they took that August the 15th off, when we used to get paid that 5 days on August the 15th, they took that off and we don't get paid to the end of the month, that put people in a hole. So, right, and the longevity, when they do get that longevity lump sum plus their pay, it does help them come out of that hole that they get into. But if you spread it out through the school year, which they rather have the lump sum than to have it spread out through the school year, because it makes a big difference. It may not, I don't know if I'm explaining it clearly enough, but it really does make a big difference. Now, I understand what Will's saying, that the more money will help out throughout the year, which, I don't know, because, I don't know, I gotta think about this one.
All right, I think everything, her had something, well, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, it was on and I turned it off. One of the other things I think worth mentioning too is that year 10 through 14 allows the supplement to be paid to a lot more people. It also is helpful because one of the things that we've noticed is there's a lot of people with 8 or fewer years and a lot of people with 16 or more years. And so there's that middle kind of your career period seems to be when we lose people. I think again I think there's some trade-offs for sure. I think one of the things that we didn't mention that is maybe worth mentioning was in SPALC labor management, we talked about a number of other things that we would like to be able to focus on in the future. Some of those are things that I know we've already touched on or talked about here, and those are things I think that we would be able to come back to, like a highest degree supplement. There was a request to look at doing something similar to what we have in place for TALC for special centers and turnaround schools, to differentiate for people that are in self-contained ESE classrooms. And then one of the other ones was to look at who's eligible to receive the Safe Driver Award, and is that amount something that needs to be addressed? We've got couriers that drive, you've got bookkeepers and custodians and other people that are sometimes making trips to the bank or to the hardware store or other places that are reimbursed for mileage, but not eligible to receive that safe driver payment for being a safe driver. There's a lot of those things I think that we would like to talk about moving forward. So I don't want you all to think that this is everything that was discussed. There was a lot more. This was, I think, what we felt like we could get to and stay within that 9.2 million bargaining authority. The one other thing, and I don't have an answer on this tonight, but was the question about what happens, in a few months when we're required to go to $15 an hour by the state. How does that work? What's the impact of that? And so that's another thing that we began to have some conversation around, but didn't really make it.
All right, anybody else? Question? Yes, Charlie.
My first question is, what will this look like in our paycheck? Is it gonna be divided and split up per paycheck, or is it gonna go into the hourly wages?
You're talking about the longevity pay, correct?
Longevity.
Yeah.
So currently, the way we're doing it with, and I'm looking at payroll, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, with TALC and admin, is that it is put as a component of pay. So it's not part of your hourly rate, it's a component of pay, and it's paid on your check in equal payments across your pay. Am I correct?
Yes. Anything that's separate.
Okay, and I have a question for you, Will. Again, you said something about the $15 an hour. Do you have a date that all the employees will have to go up to the $15 an hour?
Well,
Go ahead, Kelly.
legislation, I'll answer for him since he was talking. Legislation says that superintendents, need to have it done by October 1st. But that is what legislation is saying, that superintendents need to have done.
So that's October 1st this year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Kurt?
So I guess I have a couple of things, Will. One, I was hoping you could address the bargaining authority or the increase in bargaining authority. Because I know that we last met, oh wow, what was it, March 7th? And I think when we left, March 7th, when we left, there was an ask from our side of the table to ask the board for, for more authority. And I can tell that we have it here. I just was hoping you could address that a little bit. And I also wanted to have a little conversation around the effective date, because I know one of the, no retroactivity is a hard pill to swallow. And so I figured we need to have some conversation around that, what that looks like, what the challenges are, and.
All right, go ahead.
So Kerr is right, and I probably should have emphasized that because there was a lot of work behind the scenes. We were able to get an additional $3 million in bargaining authority. So that's a 50% increase. That's big. I can tell you this is typically the amount of bargaining authority that TALC receives. So again, it's a little bit more generous than what proportionally I think is provided to SPALC, but I think that's an acknowledgement of the fact that even when we sat at TALC bargaining, what we were hearing from teachers was, I'm having to, pick things up in my classroom, make sure surfaces are cleaned. I'm having to do things without the assistance of paraprofessionals. I'm having to do things, basically that people rely on support staff to do, and they notice the absence of support staff and the importance of support staff. And I think if you're paying close attention, that was apparent. People were talking about staying after with students and waiting around. A lot more people doing things that they're unaccustomed to doing because they don't have the support that they need because we're having such a hard time finding support staff. The other thing, as far as effective date and retroactivity, I know we're into April. Looking at ratification, it's normally 6 to 8 weeks before we can get tentative agreement out, have a ratification vote, take things to the board. That puts us pretty late in the year. I think given the year that we've had in terms of absences and coverage and all of that, it's incredibly challenging for us to do the calculations necessary to do that, which again, I think would delay payment further. So looking at where we're at in the year and what it would mean, I think the thought was that if we were to put a little bit more going forward and make that effective on July 1st of this year, that would be something again that people would see moving forward. We have some of the ESSER money that was put out there for bonuses that I think is a little bit of a boost to people. I'm not going to say that it's enough, but I think again that makes sure that people do have some money in their pocket before that time period, and again it would kind of start us out for next year with more money rather than trying to calculate the retro and having that recurring cost then reduce where we were able to get in terms of what those market rates would look like, or maybe not be able to give an 80-cent an hour increase because we've got to spread it out, so it ends up being a little bit less.
Okay? Any other questions or concerns? Vivian?
So Will, you said that the teachers are having a hard time staying at school, picking up stuff. They find themselves picking up stuff, picking up things around in the classroom. And they find themselves out there on the bus ramp, waiting with kids on the bus ramp by themselves. Since I've been on this executive board, I have been stressing that you guys should put in for us another half an hour. I mean, put us up there with the teachers while we can stay, because some parents, like myself, don't stay out on them bus ramps waiting on those buses to come to put those kids on. I go over my instead of 3:30, I go over. Sometimes I be there almost till 4 o'clock. Sometimes I have to sit there and wait till a parent come pick their child up or the school bus come. So, and there's times when the teacher's out, substitutes leave, they get paid to stay there, but they'll walk out the door, and then the parents are stuck there doing the teacher's job, staying with the kids and stuff, putting kids with wheelchairs and stuff, because we don't want to leave them like that alone with some stranger that they don't know. They know us better than somebody at the office, or they hardly ever see, or the clinic that they hardly see. So when you say this, when the teachers say this, not you, but the teachers, they gotta remember that there's parents that haven't been paid, but stayed over to 3:45 or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I had to take a student home because he missed his bus. And I asked permission by the principal, can I do that? And she said, yeah, Vivian, would you do that? I said, sure. But I'm still on duty.
Well,
I think one of the things, and maybe just to say it again, I meant that as a compliment to all of the support staff, because again, I think everyone is noticing short staffing in support staff positions. And teachers were saying, you know, I'm having to, you know, help pitch in with custodian short staffing, with food service short staffing. The things that they were complaining about were the things that, again, I think that's someone else's job on a day in, day out basis. And I think they more than ever notice and appreciate, you know, those people. Administrators have said the same. It's hard to find people who are willing to step into some of the support staff roles. And not that there's, you know, tension between TALC and SPALC, but I think it's unusual to have the TALC bargaining unit at their bargaining talking about how important support staff is. You know, when you look at their role is to advocate for their bargaining unit, and at the same time that they're doing that, they're saying, we don't have enough support staff to do what we need to do. Again, I think that explains why the bargaining authority is what it is, and why, you know, proportionally, there was an effort to put more towards SPALC to be able to help account for that.
okay, thank you. Anything else? Ken?
Just as a reminder though, SPALC does have a stipend where they do pay someone to stay extra with the late students, where SPALC does not.
We don't get paid.
SPALC employees should be receiving pay for additional hours and overtime if they're working in excess of their scheduled hours. I see you guys shaking your heads. If you're aware of situations where that's not occurring, that needs to be brought to SPALC labor management so that we can have some discussion about that. You're entitled to overtime in your positions. The other thing I would say is that there are some cases where SPALC people receive those TALC supplements, and I know that was always a sore spot for Jamie Michael, because she felt like, you know, the district was kind of getting off cheap giving someone $1,000 when they could be making overtime for all those hours. I think it was allowable, but again, I think if you're not receiving that supplement, you should be getting overtime pay. You're entitled to it under the law.
Hey.
Yes.
You turned it off on me.
Yes, could you go back and clarify again about the calculation of years, and the changes that you made for the compensation scale?
Yeah, so I think the biggest points, if I'm understanding the question, is right now, I believe the maximum amount comes in, at, I think it's 25 to 30 years, it's about $1,800. So this would be 2,000, and then for 30 plus, it would be 2,500. So that would be $600-700 more on the 30 plus end, and then about $200 more there. The other thing that this does is for years 10 through 14, it gives you something where you don't have anything currently. And then I think Raphael kind of brought this up. Right now, at 10 to 15 years, it's $150. At 15 years. At 15 years, it's $150. So this is more than that for people with 15 to 19 years. It's more for people with 20 to 24 years. It's more for people in each of those categories overall. And then the other big thing, just because I know that this has been something that's been brought up, is it also counts to your FRS. And that's because of the way that it's structured, the fact that it's a recurring payment, that it starts after the 10th year. Those are some of the things that are written into the law that we discussed when we were putting this in place with TALC, that they insisted that we do it this specific way so that it would count towards FRS, because the lump sum payment doesn't count for your annual earnings, and so you don't get the benefit of that when you retire to say, 30 years, I'm $2,500 above where I would be.
And what about the break-in service?
So if you have a break-in service, it doesn't matter. If you, under the current system, let's say you had 15 years and then you had 1 year that you left the district, to be a caretaker for a family member, and you didn't do FMLA, you just, you went. If you came back, you'd be starting at 0 under the current system. Under this, you'd be starting at, year 16. I think we've heard from a couple people over the years that, where it hurts people the most is if you have that 1 year where you decide, you're gonna go work for the county, or you're gonna go be a caretaker for someone, or you're gonna support a spouse who's, got a business on their own, or, people leaving for maternity leave, or because of medical reasons or whatever. If they don't know to put in the FMLA to get the board approved absence and they have that break-in service, they lose it all and they start from scratch. This prevents that from happening. It also makes it so that if you go from being, a head custodian to a building supervisor, it doesn't work out. You go back to being a head custodian, or maybe you make a switch and you say, okay, now I'm gonna go work in maintenance as an HVAC person, because, I did this to make kind of the career transition. The fact that you spent a year on salary scheduling would kind of interrupt that. This doesn't. It's another year of service to the district. It's another year that should be counted. And so it's another year that you'll receive credit for towards this longevity payment.
Okay, anybody else? Kerr?
I had like 5 things, but Will just checked 4 of them off.
Good job, Will.
So thank you for that, Will. I think the only thing that's left on my my list here is a shout out to everybody that contacted board members. We mentioned that at the TALC bargaining meeting. Will mentioned it, that it was rather odd to hear TALC bargaining folks advocate so strongly for support staff during a TALC meeting. And that's exactly, it warms my union heart. That's what we should be seeing. But we heard from board members that they were getting emails on the scale that they did when the mask issue was a hot button topic. And so we're very appreciative that the board heard what the members of our bargaining unit had to say, and they came back. So I just wanted to say that and put that on the record. I wanted to see if anybody else had a question. Thought maybe we could caucus for a little bit if there are no more questions.
Ready to caucus? Okay, all right, you want to caucus?
Let's take 20 minutes.
Okay. Are we good with? Okay, so I need a caucus report from SPALC.
I've been doing that all day today too, Donna.
Good,
So-
I feel better.
So our, we had a lot of discussion around the option, around the, the increase to the hourly rate across the board and how that would affect, members of the bargaining unit. SPALC is very unique in the sense that, and I know I'm not saying anything that nobody here knows, but there's a lot of different job families and it's hard to, for lack of a better word, put them in groups and put them in silos. And I think our team, well, I know our team is tasked with doing the greatest amount of good with the money available. And, we think that this option does a lot of that. One point of contention is around the longevity pay. And so we wanted to have some discussion, not about the amounts, but how it's paid. We heard a lot of conversation in our caucus around how difficult the month of August is. Folks that haven't been paid throughout the summer and then have to wait all the way up until August the 31st in order to get a paycheck. And a lot of folks in the SPALC bargaining unit really do look for that anniversary lump sum payment. We understand the ramifications of that, but we were hoping that we could put up an option that would be, what's in here, but give the employee the choice of whether they wanted it prorated or divided up throughout the year, or if they wanted it paid at their anniversary date. Donna, I think that concludes the caucus report.
Okay. All right, while you were out caucusing, I did pull out the snapshot. So we have our interest to compare these options to. And our interest for compensation back in September 20th. That's how long we've been at this. Recruitment and retention, morale, student achievement, respect, manageability, affordability, a living wage, and clarity. Those were the interests that we posted. So when you think about this, what we're putting up there for options, please consider those interests too and see. Remember, every option doesn't match every single interest, but if it matches most of them, it's probably a pretty good option. So with that, Rob, did you have something to say? Okay. Will?
So I think, you guys could tell we were kind of having sidebars and going back and forth. I think that we're also trying to get some feedback from payroll and from staffing and some of the other people that are involved in implementation. I think we see and understand kind of the cash flow issue that you're describing. And some of this is just story, so just to kind of make sure that it's out there. The one thing I think we would need to talk about is if someone were moving between bargaining units. So if I was a paraprofessional and I received the longevity payment and then moved to a TALC position halfway through the year, looking at some way to say, you wouldn't get paid twice for the longevity, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that's something that you would need to talk about with TALC or SPALC, but, or I'm a teacher and I'll take a job as a para and I'll do it right before my work anniversary so that I get a second payment. That's an implementation concern of having two separate systems. There's some others that would make things more challenging, more difficult in terms of manageability. The other one is because so many employees are hired in the start of the school year, I think there's the potential that it could create some cash flow issues for the district, because the district typically gets state funding in October. So that's kind of the leanest time for the district. November? Okay, November. I'm not expecting anyone to shed a tear over, the district cash flow when you're talking about, your own personal cash flow and ability to pay bills after, a summer where you maybe haven't had your steady normal job. But again, just wanted to put that out there, because those are considerations I think that the district side has to take into account. I also think, from what I've heard from payroll over the years, there was the option, like Kerr mentioned, for people that want to receive pay throughout the summer or pay kind of in a lump sum at the end of the summer for TALC employees. At the start of that, I think there were a lot more people that elected to have pay throughout the summer. I think after a couple of years, that dropped off. There's not as many people that do that, and not that options like that couldn't be developed, but I think there's been some question by payroll and others about whether or not enough people benefit from it to continue doing some of those things that add flexibility, or whether it's better to just give people their money and hope that they have the means to manage their money themselves. So again, just more story, not saying one way or the other, kind of where we should land, but those were things that were kind of discussed. I think the other is, again, the retention piece of, pay throughout the year, encourages people to stick around for the full year. There's also the FRS difference. Again, just want to bring that up. Not sure that it's persuasive, but feel like that's something that if we make the decision, that's something that we could hear from people about later if they say, hold on, how come, this doesn't count towards my retirement? I wish it would. Again, we can always come back. This is one of the nice things I think about the interest-based process. If we want to make refinements one way or the other, we can come back next year, like Kerr said, and talk about that stuff in a year's time, once we've had plenty of opportunity for people to provide feedback that are not at the table.
Okay, thank you. Kerr.
And I'm reminded about one more thing we discussed in caucus, and related to the legislation rather around the $15 minimum wage, for education and I believe there's medical field nurses, and we're in an even more unique position where that has to be settled by October 1st. So we'll be back at the table before we know it. To iron out those things. So if there's an interest in increasing the rates and keeping the pay the way it is in the current contract, maybe that's a route to go as well, and we can hammer out anything that didn't work well in 4 to 6 months.
No?
I think we could do that. I think one of the things too is that July 1st gives us the fresh start. But if it's something that I think is holding things back, I mean, I can understand the reservation, and again, it's a change. I understand. If it's a comfort thing, wanting to kind of proceed slowly, cautiously. I again not. No judgment here on that.
Okay. So, with that, anything else? We have 3 options up here. Of course, option 1 is the meat of everything. Option 2 is to get the longevity pay as a lump sum in August 31st, or whatever date that might be for this coming school year. And option 3 is to let SPALC employees choose whether they want to get the lump sum or have it spread out over the school year. So with that, Kerr.
Sorry, one more question. we're talking about the duration of the contract. Am I correct that this would be for I'm gonna get this right this time, FY '22 and FY '23?
Yes,
Okay, so a 2-year contract.
one of which we're almost done with. We need a caucus.
Okay,
to essentially stay with the plan that we've proposed, however. And I would like to point out that there are 380 SPALC employees that do not currently get a longevity increase or supplement or pay that would under the new plan that we proposed from years 10 to 14. So that's almost 400 employees. To offset some of the concern that's been expressed about lump sum, we have been provided authority by the board to offer an additional $1,000 bonus to be paid in October if individuals return to work in August and are employed as of September 15th. So, and working, I should say, not just employed. So, we understand the concerns about the lump sum of money in August. This will hopefully offset some of that, but we would like to stick with our proposed plan, which is much more lucrative for the SPALC employees over the long period of time. So, but we're also adding the additional $1,000 bonus. And it will help their FRS. That's the other piece of this that's important. What's that?
You want to know, are you calling this a retention
Yes.
bonus or, okay.
Yes.
Kirk,
Rob, can you talk about the funding source? Is it ESSER money?
No, not for this bonus.
Not for this bonus. This
Correct.
is the increased board contribution.
Correct.
Okay.
any other questions? Marley?
And I know you said it, but again, when will it be paid?
I believe the agreement with the team, we would try to keep it the same as with TALC, which I think is is it the 14th of October? Yeah.
So the middle of October.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The 14th. Any other questions, clarification? All right, so that $1,000 would be added as part of this original option one, or would you rather have it as a separate option?
I think keep it separate right now.
Okay, all right, we'll make it option 4. Just let Amy catch up here.
Wow.
Kirk, while she's writing that.
I don't have any questions. I think we need a few minutes to caucus and discuss the new option.
Okay,
10?
10, okay.
kind of that list of things that we wanted to look at and consider moving forward. And I think with what you're saying, there are other employee groups that that you would like to look at. And again, with like the graph that we put up there, I don't know how many of them are groups that are in there, but I think we can look at trying to make more data available between now and then to make sure that we're taking some of that stuff into account. And an example of one of the things that came up in SPALC labor management was Bernie was explaining to us how other districts have some of their school safety stuff set up. And so, you know, it builds and it kind of becomes that career path that if someone wanted to pursue, you know, different career opportunities, it kind of sets you up for that. I know that we've had some conversation in other areas about what that would look like, you know, for a clinic assistant, you know, putting them on the path to become a CNA or an LPN. And so I don't know if that's part of kind of what you're, you know, what you had in mind, but I think we were, with the money that we had and the need that we had, targeted 2 positions heavily and need to go back and look at the rest.
Okay, does that answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, I guess kind of more what I was getting to is we would be able to start a discussion for compensation that would probably start not this July, but maybe the following July is what I was kind of referring to.
Talking about fiscal year 23-24 year contract, right?
One thing with that, and I think July 1 is a good date, you know, because it's that fresh start. I also know, like, as this year has gone on, you know, it'd be nice to start the year knowing what your raise is going to look like when the year starts, rather than you're 3/4 of the way through, which I think is part of what you were trying to highlight there.
Okay, anything else? All right, we have a strike, Carter?
If there are no other questions, I guess we'll create a straw design.
Okay.
Option 5. And Donna, was the original option 1 the presentation?
Yes.
Then 1 and 5.
All right, so we have a straw design of 1 and 5. 1 was the original one up the top here. That has everything detailed.
Can you read option 5? I just can't see.
Yes.
Option 5 is would like to discuss a lump sum or throughout the year payment, next year targeting.
Thank you.
Longevity.
What about option 4, $1,000?
Okay, that's fine. Then, yeah, I thought it was included in 5. So the straw design should be 1, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 1, 4, and 5 together. 4 was the additional 1,000 that the district came back with after their caucus. And 5 is the language that SPALC just came back after the caucus. So, with that, if there aren't any other straw designs, can we test this one? Can I see thumbs? All right, we are good. We have a contract. Congratulations. Now, implementation. Do we want to, we have about 14 minutes left. Rob?
So, we sort of have a template a little bit. I think in the next 24 hours, should probably put out a joint communication that the leadership can review to let folks know of the positive news, and then Kerr knows how long his process takes for voting and potential ratification, and then we're taking TALC's hopefully ratified agreement to the board on May 10th. So we're pretty close in time to that, but it'll probably be the following, I would think, the following board meeting, which would be May 24th, which sounds about right. So Will and his staff and SPALC can work on the tentative agreement between now and the time they need it to provide it to their members. But we can certainly come up with all of the dates and things through SPALC labor management.
Okay. Kurt?
Just looking at potential ratification dates, SPALC is doing internal union elections that first week in May. And so if it can't go to the board until the 24th, we could ratify the week of the 16th, and that would give a week in between elections so people aren't confused with 2 elections going on. And what was I going to say? Oh, electronic ratification. We discovered that PERC is still approving waivers, but we don't know when they'll stop. So we will go ahead and put in for an electronic ratification waiver and cross our fingers. And hopefully we can do one more electronic vote.
And that would potentially be the new superintendent's first school board meeting, so that would be a good thing.
All right, do we need to add anything else to implementation, or the rest will just be labor management will take care of it?
Yes.
Okay, so with that,
Meeting is adjourned.
thank you. I know you said you're leaving at 6:15. I'm glad you stayed around. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you. You all have been very patient. It's difficult times, we know that. We're here to try to help you. If you have any questions, please ask. But thank you very much, all of you.
And remember, we all approved this evening, so that's what we're going to tell people.
I would like to
say,
say, I enjoyed myself for the 8 years I've been on this board, but I will not be running for this coming election. But I really enjoyed being on SPALC board.
Well, thank you for giving your 8 years. I think this year might have been the longest.